This webinar is being live streamed. Once you click start, other people can join this webinar. How exciting. Give YouTube a minute just to catch up. And I think we are live on YouTube indeed with about a 10-second delay. So hello, YouTube. We will give people a few minutes to sort of filter in. I am joined today by Kabir, who is, well, why don't you introduce yourself, Kabir?
Yeah, why not? I'm Kabir. I'm a product manager here at Tailscale. I've been here for a few years now. I primarily focus on what we call data plane and network engineering. And that really spans from features that you've probably used, like app connectors to exit nodes to subnet routers, and also how we move packets across your tailnets.
Yes, and those of you that have been paying close attention over the last few months, you will have undoubtedly seen the new Tailscale services feature. Kabir was instrumental in delivering that to you all. So, what we thought we'd do today, this is pretty standard format for this Ask an Expert series. We get various Tailscale experts, and this week it's Kabir who's in product. So feel free to ask him any questions you would like about the roadmap. We obviously can't answer everything publicly, but we'll do what we can. So any questions about Tailscale, about the roadmap, about the future of the product, about I don't know, life, the universe, and everything. We'll cherry pick the questions we like, and we'll get to them all by the end, hopefully. So in the meantime, let's just do a little bit of what they would call in the TV days, a little bit of filler, shall we? Whilst we get started, because it is a new year. I'm reliably told it's 2026. How did that happen?
Indeed. Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, I know they normally increment every year, like it's a pretty reliable situation, but somehow it always sneaks up on you and always feels surprising when you no longer write 25, you're now writing 26 instead.
Yeah, I think one thing I've changed so far this year is I've come up with a new recipe for my daily tea, so I drink less coffee. That's
Oh, well, let's
it's
hear
a
about
new
your
year,
tea
new me
recipe.
thing. Yeah.
Well,
While we get questions in the chat, um, I've switched to an Assam loose leaf instead of a bagged tea. Both from marketing around anti-microplastics from the bagged tea and from just decided maybe it tastes better. So we'll see.
have you done a blind taste test yet?
So far, today's uses both the bagged tea and the Assam leaf. So we'll try to switch completely over tomorrow.
Ah, okay. Well, I don't know, like I've got a little bit into like the coffee snobbery side of things with like Chemexes versus, V90s and was it V60? I forget. It's been a long time since I did that one. Um, I don't know. I just enjoy the ritual of a good Chemex pour.
It's a nice ritual. I do the pour overs in the morning too. So
Now, a
um,
little bit housekeeping on the format. We'll take questions in three different places. So we will be monitoring all of them throughout. We've got producer Kate in the back end marshalling questions for us. So the first place is obviously the YouTube chat. If you're there already, please leave us a question. We will see it and we'll put it in. We'll put it in the show. The other one is the events channel on our Discord channel, discord.gg/tailscale. And the third and final place is Zoom. If you're joining via Zoom, Zoom has a dedicated Q&A option. Please don't use the chat on Zoom. We're not looking at that. We've already got enough places to be looking. We're going to look at the Q&A section on Zoom specifically. So please, if you want to ask myself or Kabir any questions, Kabir, obviously, those of you that joined a little bit later, is one of the product managers here at Tailscale. So please ask him any questions you like about the roadmap. Like I say, we probably can't answer everything publicly, but we'll do what we can. And so I would like to open things up with a fairly generic first question for you, Kabir, saying, what are some things that you and your team are excited about in the future that are on the roadmap?
yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm an apt person to answer that. So there's a few things that if you've been paying attention to some of our recent announcements in the fall update, we also have a winter update coming up shortly. Um, we talked about some features that we just started development on, went into beta. Those are becoming generally available. Some of the top highlights there are multi tailnet. I think the ability to really split out your network into multiple smaller networks is going to unlock a lot of interesting use cases for us, including things like separating your development and your production environments, or expanding your use of Tailscale across multiple business units or even micro organizations within whatever you think your network looks like within your company, um, or even across partner sites, right? If you're like a contractor and you have multiple networks that you manage. Another one I'm very excited about is services. You touched on that at the top of this call, Alex. We're working on making that generally available. Stay tuned. You know, we have a lot of feedback from what we first released just a few months ago. We have a lot of people who are eager to use it. We have a lot of items that we're excited about in terms of bolstering that capability, making it easier for you to set up, spin up, and use those services, as well as some routing capabilities on top of that, and building with it. So, you know,
Can we get into
it's
any
great.
of the specifics on services? Because I know after the launch came in particular, and this audience often quite likes sort of self-hosting Docker related questions. There were a few people asking about the sort of self-hosting story of like services and being able to attach to more stuff than local host. I wondered if you might be able to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's something that we've been working on the back end. We are moving towards a model where you can attach to not just local hosts, but maybe something that's remote or on your local network. Um, and so you can move to a model where you have a box that's running Tailscale and it knows about all the other things on your network. And so it can do kind of the last mile decision making and routing. And Tailscale doesn't necessarily need to be on everything within your local area network, and sometimes it can't be. So, um,
Heresy.
yeah, I prefer the model where you install Tailscale in as much as possible because it just works. But there are many cases where that's not possible, and you do need different access patterns, and so that's why we're building some of that out. I mean, getting into more nitty gritty, there's a lot of feedback we've had around being able to build with services. So using things like TSNet, we're working on that as well. Stay tuned for when that comes out. Um, and then a lot of feedback around being able to tune the routing algorithm. And that's something that's a bit further out, but we're still hearing feedback on it. Um, we have a lot more in the pipe. And one thing that we'd like to look at a lot is the feedback channels that we get, the ones that Alex mentioned, our GitHub issues as well. It's a great place to give us feedback. Upvoting any of the existing issues or adding your comments to it is a great way to let us know. I'm always monitoring that, what's happening. And so those are some great ways to get even more of your ideas into our pipeline and problems that you're seeing. And then maybe one more thing I'll touch on the like what's in the roadmap that I'm excited about is peer relays. That's exciting because we've built DERP as like this reliability mechanism to make sure Tailscale always works and you can always connect to the things that you want to. But in many cases, the direct connections don't always manifest, or they're maybe even slower than certain types of network paths that you want to take. And peer relays come in and say, hey, I can not only give you reliability, but I can give you throughput even in difficult network situations. And maybe you can move off of like a subnet router model um, in some of those scenarios and move into more of a full mesh. So top top line items to kind of take a look at for the future of Tailscale.
Lots to listen about there. I think the peer relays one, we're going to have some news about that coming in the winter update. So if you're interested to hear more about that, you can register for one of our upcoming webinars on February the 19th. There'll be a link in the chat. Our producer Kate will drop that link shortly, where you can register for a webinar where we're going to discuss all sorts of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff I can't mention yet, but it's going to be a good week. So yeah, get registered for that on February the 19th. Now, next question I have coming in, and actually I'm going to ask a question to the questioner. It says, I use Tailscale on a remote server. Is there a way to auto-update without a dialog box showing on the screen? Now, my question back to you is, which server has a UI? Probably Windows Server, I'm going to imagine. So I'm going to assume it's Windows Server. If that's incorrect, please let us know in the chat. But Kabir?
Is there a way to auto update without a dialog showing on the screen? Yeah, there should be. I personally don't have auto updates turned on for my sorry, for my UI servers. I don't have a UI
Oh,
server,
it's a
so
Mac server, this one. Yeah, so I've
okay.
I've run into that a few times where I've got auto update turned on and it will present me a dialog box saying, "Do you want to update?" And I'm curious as to maybe some of the reasoning there. Is it around like connection interruption prevention or like what's the thinking there?
I'd have to go back to my team to kind of give you the right answer, but my guess, with a little bit of a finger in the wind here, is that there's probably some restrictions that we have within the Mac sandbox, that
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they're pretty
So
strict.
it depends, I suppose, also how you've installed it because on the Mac there are three different ways to install it, and so maybe GD25 if you'd let us know how you've installed it, and then we can take that feedback with Kabir back to the Mac team and get you a proper answer. I don't know how we get it to you. Maybe we'll just tweet it or something and see how it goes. But
You can
yeah,
always open a support ticket. Our team is listening all the time, so that's a good way to get some of
that's
your
great.
specific
Yeah,
questions answered.
great idea. Now, next question is one that says, I use Tailscale daily and I love it. One question I have is around exit nodes. Is there a way an exit node can be auto-selected or deselected when I connect to a certain network?
Yeah, this is something that we've heard repeatedly. We have what we don't have today is awareness of which network you're on within Tailscale, and so that's something that we need to build in order to first party build some of these types of features. Um, what we do have though is system policies that you can write to anytime. And so you can write a system policy to your device that says, hey, when I'm on a specific network, quickly Claude code a script that says, um, inject the system policy that says the exit node should be turned on. And you can use auto. You don't need to select a specific one. We do have automatic exit node selection. That's something where we will take a look at all the exit nodes that are available to a specific client and choose the best one for you at that time. And we'll continuously reevaluate what that one is. The key in there is auto colon any as the value to the exit node ID key.
Mhm. And so that performance thing is actually a really interesting feature because it was a byproduct of some of the work that got done, I think, on peer relays to like help with the routing of traffic in an efficient way between different places. And so when you come home, the exit node with the least latency will likely be the exit node that's in your home network, assuming you have one. If you're traveling, though, you may find, I don't know if you have a VPS or something, that one has better performance than the one from your house. I mean, it depends on a lot of factors. But Tailscale will now intelligently route those packets based on, well, what's the mechanism it uses to determine performance? Is it ping time or something else?
We use latency as a measurement for exit nodes, but it's a combination. So exit nodes sometimes will have location attributes associated with them. If you're using, for example, our Mulvat add-on, those exit nodes, there's hundreds of them that come with Mulvat. And so if I go home, what I don't want to do is I don't want to send um, tests to every single Mulvad exit node to see which one's appropriate for me. Instead, what Tailscale does in those scenarios is our control plane says, hey, take a look at these ones. These are the ones that are probably closest to you. And only test those. And so that's what our mechanism is for selection. We do change that selection on certain types of events, like turning Tailscale on and off, or hitting the exit node button again, or major link changes, things like that.
And of course, if you're using something like iOS or Android, Android, you've got Tasker, which exposes all sorts of knobs and dials that you can tweak to do various API calls with the applications on your system. You could probably do some magic there. On the iOS side, of course, you've got the iOS shortcuts. I'm not entirely sure if we expose exit nodes through shortcuts, but certainly there is something you could probably do there around the SSID that gets exposed and like maybe have a pop-up that says like, I notice you're on this network. Which exit node do you want? Maybe. So lots of ideas. Let us know because that's actually that would be a really good video. Maybe I should make that as a video.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's half of what this session is, Kabir, is this is Alex's video backlog appearing before my very eyes. Question for you on your tea preferences. Have you tried adding salt to your tea yet?
This is very timely. I got this feedback yesterday as well. Um, and so today I did try adding salt, but I think I added too little. Uh, this is something I'm going to have to come back to you on in a few days.
I actually watched a video, believe it or not, on how someone replicated Coca-Cola chemically. And part of what they did was the tannins in there that they had to put some salt in to kind of just take the edge off them slightly. Oh, it's crazy. But then they had this like spectrometer where they did like gas analysis. It was nuts. Anyway, they basically chemically replicated Coca-Cola without the recipe. It was kind of amazing. Follow up on the Mac question, by the way, about the auto update was installed through the browser, just a Mac M4, normal, normal Mac OS install. So we will follow up with you on that one later. Now we have all the information. Thank you very much. So this is a really interesting question actually about how Tailscale gets packaged for various different platforms. So for example, all the different NASes that exist, like Synologies, QNAPs, Unraids, yada yada yada. Is that up to those specific vendors to implement, or does Tailscale have a partnership program and help them in some way?
We're certainly open to partnership programs in the future. What we do today is we develop for specific platforms, and then some of our open source community and community partners develop for some of the long tail of platforms that we can't feasibly continue to bring into the fold first party. Um, and so there's kind of a long tail of platforms here. Tailscale tends to just work on many of them when you install them. Some of the vendors will just install Tailscale out of the box when they ship it to you. Others will say, "Hey, here's some steps that you can use to install Tailscale," or you'll have to go to some of our community to figure out the install steps. So
Kind of
I'd say the
wild
short
when
answer,
it's
yeah,
kind of wild when Tailscale just pops up. Like there were the GLINet like KVM devices, and I logged in. I bought it without knowing it did Tailscale, and I logged in and I'm like, "There's a Tailscale button in here. This is great." And we had nothing to do with that. So I think there are probably some things we could do in terms of like providing an SDK that will make some of those integrations easier for vendors specifically. But for right now, we just ship a static Go binary, which you can find at packages.tailscale.com. And that really is as difficult as it gets. As long as your platform can run Go, ostensibly, it can pretty much run Tailscale.
yeah, exactly. Um, we do have some of these vendors that we have like conversations with, right? So to some extent, it's a partnership program. It's not fully fledged, as Alex says. It's something we can always improve on in the future.
What do you do in terms of like home lab or self-hosting? Are you deep in that ecosystem or not at
I'd
all?
say compared to some of our customers, I'm very lightly in the ecosystem. But I do have a Synology at home. I share it with my pops. He loves to put videos
Hmm.
and photos. He's got a bunch of analog stuff, film rolls from probably his grandfather and his father that
That's nice.
he keeps digitizing through various large boxes of technology I see in his garage. And so he sends them over to me quite often. So I get a lot of that in my Synology. He lives across the country, so Tailscale just works for him.
I think it's so important, and photos are one of those really unique intersections of technology and creativity, and just dare I use the phrase muggle? Like it's something that muggles can understand. You know what I mean? Like my mum, for example, bless her, I love her to pieces, but she's not going to spin up a TrueNAS server and a ZFS this, that, and the other and back it up and all. Like that's what I know. That's what I'm good at. So all I need to expose to her over my tailnet, and I do node sharing, is the image front door. As long as she has the Tailscale app turned on her phone, all of her photos back up to me. And when she downloads her SD card from her proper camera, I've just given her a sync thing folder. She drops things in that sync thing folder, and then they end up on my NAS. And then Image picks that up and scans them, and she can see them. And it's kind of amazing. I mean, I'm lucky in this house in so much as that I have fiber symmetrical 1 gig up and down. So I've got just as good connectivity here as, using a paid server, maybe at like Hetzner or Linode or something like that. But I think we're also seeing, a generalized move away from personal computing at the minute. The prices of hardware has just gone bonkers in the last 6 months, and photos are one of those areas. It's like I can't recreate those moments, so I'm willing to put the time and the effort into backing them up, and it's something that you can share with that family member and then go through and look at them later, and those things don't get lost. And Tailscale is an integral part of how I do that.
Yeah, and you've given me some ideas on how I can make this more
Uh-oh.
accessible to my mother. So I have a weekend project. Um, Currently, it's only Pop's grandma and mom are not using it because it's a little too uh, high friction and too high of a barrier. So
Well, I mean, what can we do to reduce that friction? Because some of that's going to be on the Tailscale side, isn't it? With stuff like using the TSNet domains instead of custom domains. This isn't a question on the list, but I know some people in the audience are thinking it. And given we have you here, Kabir, custom domain support for Tailscale serve when?
yeah, the answer is it's on the radar. We don't have a timeline for it yet. But personally, I feel that it's something that I really want to get to, so that I can make it easier for my mother to access some of these things, but also because a lot of our customers need it, pretty much across the whole spectrum. There's a lot of
What are some
integration
of the
issues.
what are some of the complexities around? Because we obviously provide the TS.NET TLS certificate service, in partnership with Let's Encrypt. We provide that all for free to every Tailscale customer, no matter whether you're a free tier or enterprise customer. What are some of the complications technically around providing custom domain support?
Yeah, there's quite a few, but we've chipped away at them. And so kind of one of the reasons why you've probably heard us for years say, hey, it's something that's on our radar, is because as we keep uncovering the supportability of this, we see that there's a lot of assumptions that we've made in the past that we need to kind of unwind. And so that's part of growing up as an organization, and building for your customers. But some of the ones that we have remaining are around identity concerns, who owns the domain, things like that. TLS as well is a major component, and then plumbing it all the way through our internal architecture so that it just works for you is kind of the big piece I'll broadly talk about. But there's micro components of that we've gotten rid of, that we've changed the assumptions of over the years, and so you'll see us whittle away at it, I think, over time. But at some point, the last domino will fall, and we'll be able to release it to our customers.
Right, because if you look at the entire purpose of what TLS is for, yes, it's encrypting your traffic as it traverses the wire, but it's also for establishing trust and proving you are who you say you are at the other end of the transaction. And so by having that shared ts.net domain, we can own that domain name, and Let's Encrypt on the back end can verify that yes, Tailscale is trustworthy, and then we do the trust with the end users. So it's kind of like a two-step process in terms of establishing trust on that one. Whereas if it was a custom domain, you're kind of, let's say you've got a caddy reverse proxy running locally or something, you are kind of being Tailscale in that scenario. You are establishing that yes, I own this domain by providing a DNS API key or whatever the challenge method you use is. So there's just a lot of complexity there. There's going to be a ton of edge cases because whenever you provide like a wide open support for something, there's always going to be edge cases. So yeah, it's a really interesting one, and I know the day we announce that as being a feature, the I think we'll break the internet. So
Yeah, watch out, Wreck-It Ralph. Telltale's coming. I was wondering if you'd get the reference.
I I have a 5-year-old. Wreck-It Ralph is on basically on repeat. It's Wreck-It Ralph. It's the Grinch, the animated one, with Benedict Cumberbatch in it. She loves that one for some reason. And Harry Potter at the minute. There you
It's tis the season for Harry Potter, I think.
go.
And Benedict Cumberbatch is, yeah, very soothing voice. So I think,
Always a treat. I watched a film on the plane actually with him and Olivia Colman in it called The Roses. If you like kind of amusing, basically husband and wife, they end up hating each other and they start doing ever increasing, more ridiculous ways of trying to divorce each other, and neither one wants to give in. It's quite funny.
I
The
didn't watch it
Roses.
myself, but I did see about 5 seats near me all had it on. So
Yeah, it was quite good.
it must be good.
Yeah. Now, should we bring it back to Tailscale for a second?
Yeah, let's do that.
Multi-tailnet support, is that sticking? So this is, I think, a pricing and packaging question. Is it going to come to all plans in the future, or what are the thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd love to have an immediate answer for that right now, but that's not something that I can answer today. I can talk a little bit about ethos. I mean, one of the things that we don't want to do is just gate everything, right? Um, we think that this is very useful for a variety of use cases. I think things like separating dev and prod is very different from separating across many different business units. Um, so we'll come back to you once we have a better answer. We're still in the works of building that out, and so that's kind of where the focus is today.
Yeah. Now, there's a question in the chat asking, what is the recommended way to install Tailscale on a Mac? Funny you should ask. I've just posted a link to the documentation for you in the chat. I made a video about this a couple of years ago, but there's also a documentation page. I think the video is embedded in that page too. So whatever floats your boat, it's there for you. Now, I need to do a plug about some upcoming community meetups next week or the week after in Durham, North Carolina, just down the road from me. At the Cramden Institute on January the 22nd, we are going to be doing a community meetup. You can find out more about that at tailscale.com/events-webinars. We've also got another one coming up in San Francisco on January the 28th. Is it Jalingo? That can't be right. It must be Halingo or something in Nigeria on January the 31st. I apologize for anybody in Nigeria that's probably laughing at their screen right now. I don't know how to say it. Nairobi in Kenya on February the 14th. And if you're interested in hosting a meetup, you can reach out to Natasha, who runs our community efforts here at Tailscale, at the email address community@tailscale.com. She does a fantastic job. So yeah, there's meetups in Durham, San Francisco, Nigeria. I'm not going to say the town, Nairobi, and plenty more besides that. Of course, we're going to be at events throughout the year as well. We've just all agreed to go to Scale in Pasadena in March, which should be really I love Pasadena in March. It's a beautiful place to be. So hopefully we'll see you there. Yeah. Okay, now there's a question here about the resiliency of the platform, and I wondered if, so specifically it's talking about there was an outage in the last month or so. I wondered if we might talk a little bit about some of the steps that we're doing behind the scenes to address that stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and quite honestly, I'll go under the covers a little bit here and say like this is very top of mind for us.
Yes, absolutely.
We are kind of attacking this on multiple fronts. So first off, we've been working on resiliency for about a year now. Possibly, if you really want to count all the resourcing we've had on it, pretty much for the entire existence of Tailscale's control plane and derp servers. And we've chipped away by making major architectural changes to how our control plane works, how we store customer data, things like that. We continue to build teams around these. So we're continuing to bolster our control plane team. We also have built out a data plane team, kind of separating what the focus is, because there's resiliency both from like a network perspective, and there's resiliency from the perspective of our infrastructure and where we store your data and how we move things around and how we deal with state changes and things. Specifically around outages, the three things that we're doing right now, we're working on improving our incident response and communication plans. We are addressing all the feedback that we're getting from any of those incidents that pop up. We are bolstering the size of pretty much every one of the teams working on resiliency. So we're investing very heavily in it. we're also making future-facing changes. So there's things deep within Tailscale's architecture that we want to change assumptions around for certain types of use cases and certain types of customers. And so those things I think will take some time to kind of see, and other parts of that will be immediately things that you just won't see some of those outages, some of those types of outages again.
That's the reality
We're
of a product like Tailscale, though, isn't it? It's like if it's doing its job well, you don't even notice. And
exactly.
so a lot of that is true for the internal plumbing and a lot of the work you've just mentioned around like re-architecture and stuff like that. You know, as Tailscale's grown from just a few hundred customers to now 20,000 plus, of course, there's going to be some growing pains. But I think the important thing for me at least is that I mean I've been in some of those kind of engineering meetings listening to how leadership are going to address these issues, and I feel pretty good. Like I'm listening to what they're talking about and what they're saying, and it's been all being taken very seriously, and I think the correct steps are being taken. So time will tell, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, if we wanted to talk about like specifically certain types of things, almost all of our projects within our data plane engineering team tend to help with this resiliency problem. So, for example, some of the decision making that we make on the overlay part of the network, so which backend are you choosing, happens through estimation coming from our derp servers. And if those are not available or there's connectivity issues between our derps and the thing you are trying to talk to, you might get like a false negative or a false positive in terms of something being online or offline. And so you'll get the wrong selection and maybe you'll have connectivity issues as a result. We're going to move that so that the end user's clients actually make some of those decisions on their own, similar to what we talked about with exit nodes, where we give you a set of exit nodes that are candidates and your client chooses which ones those are. So you get closer to ground truth. Those types of things help with resiliency because they take some of our control plane and decision making out of our paths and back into yours. And so your network tends to stay online more frequently and is more resilient to even intermittent blips. But yeah, there's a lot more to unpack there. If you have more questions around that, feel free to reach out to our team. We can always have a discussion.
Now, there's a question here about multicast. I don't know how much you know about multicast, but it's a way to route traffic across different. Like it's a discovery type mechanism, right? So things like MDNS and uh, SSDP work over multicast as well. So there's a question here saying, will multicast work across Tailscale? And the short answer is no, I'm afraid. Multicast doesn't work across Tailscale by default because Tailscale is a layer 3 based protocol, whereas multicast is mostly, not entirely, but mostly layer 2. So you would get some of the bits, but not all of the important bits it needs to actually do the discovery and what have you. So it may still work fine if you rely on, or if you configure static IPs and things like that. But there are tools that will do MDNS relays and things like that between different networks, and we've seen reports from some users, although I've never tried it myself, that some of that stuff actually works pretty well. But no, the short answer is that multicast is not a supported protocol over Tailscale. Do you want to take a question, Kabir?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Next on my list is around wildcard certificates. Would it be possible to make ts.net subdomains have wildcard TLS certs for the whole tailnet? So that's something that we don't support today. There's a variety of reasons for it, primarily kind of from a security perspective. We don't want like a hostile actor to be able to just mint certs or add new devices on your behalf. But it's possible for us to say in the future, and this is something we're thinking about, honestly, within a lot of the devices and services realms, is maybe there's subsets of your network that you want to allow a wildcard cert to be minted on and allow maybe a trusted developer to be able to add resources within that namespace. So that's something that we'll think about for the future. Back to whoever's asking that question, would love to learn more about what you want to do with Tailscale with the wildcard certs. Um, it's something that we're looking at. It's not available today.
Also, again, it comes back to that issue of establishing trust and like verifying you are who you say you are. You know, if you're not using a wildcard, that the application that you're speaking to is exactly cryptographically the application that it says it is, because each individually served resource on your tailnet has its own certificate and its own chain of trust. So, pros and cons to both approaches. Of course, you end up with a proliferation of certificates, and you can run into rate limiting issues if you're going crazy. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I imagine it'll be up there with custom domain support one day. It'll be one of those things that eventually a big enough deal will come along, and that'll be one of the blockers, and we'll make it happen. It's just the reality of commercial software development sometimes. All right. Is it possible? No, we just did that one. I have users. I have some users on my tailnet using their own tailnets, but hold on. I have other users using their own tailnets, but want to connect to my server's tailnet at the same time. Is that possible? So I think the question is, can I connect to two tailnets at once? Is that the question?
Yeah, so today you can't. But uh, let's talk about why you might want to do this. I think usually the thing that's happening here is um, at least what we've heard from customers. So speak up and let us know if this is incongruent with what you're seeing. Um, is that customers who want to do this generally have a lot of infrastructure in one network, and they have a lot of other infrastructure that they sometimes need to use that's in another network. And they don't want to expose that they can't expose that on two telnets, or they don't want to. There's a lot of overhead with it. And so they want to share those resources between the telnets, maybe for a small amount of time, maybe forever, maybe there's a lot of those resources, and so it's hard to use node sharing for some of them. Something that we're thinking about is like, how do we expand sharing today in a manner that allows you to share or peer multiple resources or a vast quantity of them to other tailnets, or maybe even to specific users on other tailnets. And so that's a story that we're kind of teasing apart right now. If you have ideas around that, questions, problems that you're facing, please reach out to our team. We continue to do a lot of research there. But in terms of connecting to multiple tailnets at once, that's not something that's necessarily on the radar. What we want to solve instead is how you share resources between the tailnets so that you can just stay in your own network and get the things that you need access to.
Yeah, almost like a VPC peering type model. I think that's where we want to get to.
Yeah.
You can, as Kabir said, do a lot of that stuff today with the node sharing that's already built into Tailscale, but it's on a per device basis. There are some caveats around tagging and various other gotchas. So please, if that's one of your use cases, open a support ticket, give us all the details, and we can use that to feed into the product roadmap as we move forward and develop these features for you. Okay. Apparently Alex K said it's Tailscale time and Tailscaled all over the place. No idea what that even means, chat. What are you talking about? No idea. Pregand? What? I don't know. Okay, question here from Spain saying, I live in Spain and I have an Apple TV node in Brazil. Any tips on getting a direct connection back to that Brazilian exit node instead of what seems to happen a lot? I fall back to a DERP connection, a relayed connection. I just can't seem to get it to connect directly consistently.
Yeah. So we have a really great troubleshooting guide that kind of helps you with understanding some of the firewalls, NAT considerations between networks that are very far from each other or just in very locked down scenarios. And that usually helps establish a direct connection. Um, but we often see that those direct connections are inconsistent or inconsistently created or unable to be created. And so we recently launched a feature called Peer Relay, and this can help in a lot of those scenarios. What you can do is put a peer relay either near your exit node or in your house in Spain, whichever network's a little more locked down. And basically, it's used as the relay instead of DERP. And that peer relay uses your connection since it's managed by you instead of the shared resource that DERP is designed to be, more of a reliability feature than it is, and a connectivity feature than it is a high throughput feature. And so if you're trying to do, high throughput connections uh, to Brazil from Spain, you might want to look into using peer relay as the fallback for direct instead of using DERP. It's available today in beta. Take a look at it. It's PEER relay.
Now, I've also put a link in the chat to a tool from my colleague Lee Briggs, who heads up our solutions engineering efforts here at Tailscale. And the tool is called Stunner. And what you might find, and this is in reply to the Spain Brazil question, is that yes, peer relays are probably going to help you, but it would also be helpful for you to understand the topology of the NAT that you have to traverse. So you might end up in an easy NAT, a hard NAT, a carrier grade NAT. There might be all sorts of other, weirdness in between. This really simple tool, you just run it in both networks and get a better picture of what the firewall situation looks like in that topology. It's a really useful tool. Doesn't do much, but what it does do, it does pretty well. So, all right. Now, does Tailscale throttle bandwidth even through direct connections? I'm seeing a drop in bandwidth when using Jellythin through Tailscale.
Short answer is no, not intentionally. If you take a look at our blog, we have a few blog posts around the throughput that we're getting with direct WireGuard connections. It's very high. It's in the multiple gig range. So you shouldn't see any sort of major performance hit. What you will see though is if you are using DERP, we will max out the throughput on a connection. And that's because it's a shared resource, as we talked about a few times and touched on a few times throughout this series. We think of it as a reliability and connectivity tool more so than a high throughput relay. And if you need a high throughput relay, you can always reach out to that peer relay tool to kind of get better connections. Now, the second part of this is the work kind of never stops in terms of throughput and performance. So we have part of our data plane engineering team's charter is to actually help improve the performance when using Tailscale. And so there's work in the pipeline, always work on our radar in terms of how we improve performance. It's kind of something that we continue to chip away at. We'll periodically let the community know about some of those performance improvements. Some of them are minute. Some of them will have outsized impact in certain types of networking scenarios and almost no impact in other types of networking scenarios. And so they're really hard to dissect, but over time, we're going to continue to chip away.
The other thing you can't really plan for, this is to add on to everything Kabir just said, is that you don't know what shaping your ISP is doing. You don't know what routing your particular TCP stack picked that day. For example, for me, like I'm often traversing the Atlantic back to my parents' house in England from the States, and I can to a friend of mine in Canada, I can reliably get 3, 4, 5, 600 MB depending on the day for my ZFS replications. But then going to England, because I'm traversing the transatlantic pipes, which have only got a finite amount of bandwidth, I get like a quarter, maybe half that, even though I know that in bursty traffic, I can get much faster. But when you start streaming data, the ISPs, they've got some very sophisticated hardware these days. They know that it's a long-term relationship you're entering into, and so they'll start throttling you based on that rather than anything else. So it's like but by establishing the direct connections, you've removed a lot of the latency and a lot of the layers of the onion from being a problem. But what you can't control is what happens once things leave your firewall and get to the other firewall. It's just a sad reality, but that's the truth. And also, net neutrality and all that kind of stuff. You probably heard about that a few years ago. Internet fast lanes exist, and one of the one of the benefits of hyperscaler cloud providers is, of course, that they have incredibly well peered data centers. And so if you're running something in AWS, for example, versus running it out of my basement, well, one is going to be less difficult to reach from the rest of the world. It's just a reality. So, uh, I hope that answers the question. So it's a fascinating topic, and I could probably talk about it all day, but we shall move on. Now, could you see Tailscale completely replacing enterprise VPN platforms like Cisco Secure Client, Palo Alto Global Protect, or do you believe this could just be supplementary to those tools?
That is a very good question, Alex. And I have a very short answer, which is yes. But we'll dig into that a little bit. So we quite frequently replace VPN platforms, existing enterprise VPN platforms across enterprises. A large majority of our customers that we work with today are replacing their existing VPN clients. Either they're doing that on a per team basis, maybe a specific team needs some sort of infrastructure access that those clients, those platforms can't provide, or they're doing it across the whole organization to tens of thousands of users. That includes platforms like Global Protect. It includes platforms like Secure Access, Cisco's Secure Client. It includes any of your ZTNA or SASE providers out there as well. So it's kind of a core use case for us. We also work in a supplementary manner, right? Unfortunately, on certain platforms, you can't run multiple VPNs. And so in those cases, it's kind of a choose one or the other. But in many cases, we can run in supplementary fashion because you just choose which one you want to use, depending on what you're accessing. But most often what we see is kind of a complete replacement of the legacy platforms for a more modern, user-friendly approach that Tailscale takes.
Yeah. We might also be, we should probably ask this question again when we've got some of the solutions engineering team on the call next time, because this is what they do all day, every day. They're talking to customers, replacing legacy VPNs, replacing OpenVPN, all of these big, established long-term providers that have expensive hardware-based solutions with software-based mesh VPN solutions like Tailscale. We've seen this pattern emerging well for many years, and we've invested heavily in making sure that a lot of those blockers that would prevent people from making those switches have kind of been smoothed. Those rough edges have been smoothed out of the way. So yeah, we're pretty confident that you could replace any of those tools with Tailscale and get a whole bunch more features on the side as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue. I think we should talk a little bit about what our customers are using Tailscale for at work, outside of necessarily the home lab that Alex, you and I use Tailscale for at home. We see customers using Tailscale as a replacement to their traditional or legacy enterprise VPNs. We also see customers using Tailscale as an infrastructure or remote access tool. We have a variety of other use cases as well. So we quite frequently see Tailscale used in CI/CD workloads, so connectivity from runners to resources that are often in development or staging environments, where you need secure access and you need granular access controls, but you don't want to open up a bunch of firewall rules and put things on the public internet and kind of deal with MTLS and all that stuff. We also see Tailscale being used to secure some of the newer LLM AI use cases that a lot of companies are starting to adopt at a very rapid pace. More on that in the future. We also see Tailscale used for workload or service-to-service connectivity or cluster-to-cluster connectivity. So since we are a connectivity platform, one of the things that customers tend to do is they use Tailscale to connect their clusters across multiple regions, or connect their clusters to other services that they have across their networks, or sites to various sites. And we're seeing more and more of kind of this machine-to-machine connectivity happen on our platform. So that's kind of the top ones that we see today. There's more. If you have more, let us know. We'd love to hear what you were using Tailscale for. But if you'd like, you can take a look at tailscale.com/BTW to bring Tailscale to work. There's kind of like an easy set of steps if you're using Tailscale at home and you're thinking about one of those problems that you'd like to solve that I just mentioned. Tailscale can always be used at your organization.
Now, I have a bit of a selfish plug here. I'm in the process of hiring some new DevRel folks. So, the first position of a couple that are coming in the next quarter or so is now live. We're looking for a technical social media coordinator. So, if you are into tech, if you're into home labbing, if you're into video editing, because you need to help me produce some of the videos for the channel moving forward, and social media type stuff like TikToks and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and whatever the kids are doing these days. I don't know. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. I've no idea what's going on. Yeah, if you're interested in that, go to tailscale.com/careers. It's not just me that's hiring. There are positions open all across the company. I think there's stuff in product, there's stuff in engineering, DevRel, marketing, sales, you name it. We are growing like crazy right now. So please, go take a look at that stuff. And probably if you're here, you're probably the sort of person we're looking for. So go take a look. All right, we've got 8 minutes left, and I have a hard stop at the top of the hour because, well, I'm doing an interview at the top of the hour for one of those positions, actually. So let's let's do a speed round on a couple. I'll cherry pick a few questions here for you, Kabir. Any news on a possible integration with Tailscale officially with Unify?
Let's see. I don't have any news on that right now.
No, me either. I
Uh,
know there are plenty of people internally that use Unify like crazy, and we would all love it too. What I will say is, unofficially, most of the Dream machines and the routers that Unify have run Linux under the hood. Do with that information what you will. They'll probably run Tailscale if you try hard enough. Why can't an untagged device do Tailscale serve dash dash service?
Great question. This is a question around the new beta feature Tailscale services. Right now, services need to be running on a tagged device, and that's because the way we've kind of built services is it's designed to be running on your servers, and your servers should be tagged devices. That's kind of the model that we've built. It gives us a lot of nice side effects that I won't go into during the speed round, but effectively uh, for the foreseeable future, services will need to be run on a tagged device, and that's because we expect them to be long-lived. User devices kind of tend to come and go, their laptops, things like that. If you need to do like a quick share of a local host development environment, feel free to just use serve without the services flag. But if there's something that you want to have long-lived, highly available, things like that, that's where services will come into play, and that's why we want them on tagged devices.
Who maintains Tailscale GoLink, which is a URL shortener that is Tailscale native? The top contributors are Will Norris, Brad Fitzpatrick, and Mike O'Driscoll. So I'll go poke them and see if we can't get your PR some traction. Don't worry about that. Um, it's one of those kind of pet projects that kind of falls between the cracks sometimes. So we're not ignoring you. We're just busy doing other stuff. It's just the reality. Are you considering doing any screen sharing for basic remote access without using Rust Desk? So like a built-in RDP for Tailscale?
That's something that is on the radar, but not something that we have in the immediate future. Um, Please go submit a GitHub issue. Tell us about your use case. We'd love to hear more. I think there are a few open around this particular request, so just do a quick search in our repo.
Now, Kubernetes question. Can I hide the operator from my Tailnet node list? I only want to see the ingresses, not the operator.
Today you can search and filter, but it's not something you can hide out of the box. We have a lot of filtering mechanisms on that machines page. Um, We also don't have those filtering mechanisms within the menu bar, but we have a windowed UI where you can kind of do a lot more filtering as well. That's recently come out on Mac and is coming to Windows as well. So we have a lot of progress there. More to do in the future. We want to make this a lot easier for you to manage. If you have specific feedback beyond just that, let us know.
Another question from Richard E. Baker here, who asked the operator question. Um, can I can we do subdomains in my tailnet? And I'm curious to know the use case there. Are you looking to do like a wild card with Caddy so you can do custom domains or something? I don't know. Like I'm curious, Richard, if you give us a bit more to go on with that question. Are there any plans for native Wake on LAN support with Tailscale?
I don't have the answer to that right now. I'll need to go take a look, but I have seen this request in our GitHub backlog and our issues. So we can come back to you on that.
The short answer is no. But you can, and I know your question said without an always on node acting as a local relay, but a Raspberry Pi doesn't use very much power, you know. In fact, one of those little Lenovo small form factor PCs uses less than 10 watts anyway, and it's a full x86 experience. Uh, just do that, and then use that as your Wake on LAN server. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like that's probably the easiest way. Also, for those of you wanting to install Tailscale on the Unify stuff as well, I think part of me is until there is an official integration, of which I do not know one is coming or will exist ever. I'm just hypothetically speaking here. I actually personally like the appliance aspect of the Unify gear. So like putting my subnet router on a dedicated virtual machine or some kind of like a Pi Zero or just something in the network that isn't the firewall itself. I don't know. I just feel like that's more flexible long term. All right, we've got 2 minutes left, so I should probably make sure I've covered off all the plugs. Kate, please tell me if I've missed anything. Highlight something in the doc if I've missed it. But you can find us more at discord.gg/tailscale if you want to join the chat in real time. The winter update is coming. Please don't forget to get registered for the upcoming webinars on February the 19th. You can look at the link in the chat from Kate, who's going to post it in the chat in just a second, for more information on the Tailscale winter update and all of our webinars and stuff that are coming up. Also, if you're in the Durham area, there is a meetup coming next week. San Francisco, the week after that, on January the 28th. Nigeria, there's one in Jalingo. I know I've screwed that up again, but whatever. January the 31st and Nairobi in Kenya on February the 14th. And again, if you're interested in hosting a meetup for Tailscale, please reach out to Natasha, who runs our community efforts here at Tailscale, at community@tailscale.com. So I think with all of that said, we are probably just about ready to wrap up for today. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the good people with, Kabir?
I think we've covered all the bases here. I think one more thing, if you're thinking about bringing Tailscale to work, tailscale.com/BTW is a great resource for you. And you can always reach out to the product team through any of our feedback mechanisms that we've mentioned at the top of the call. That's Discord, that's Reddit, that's our GitHub issues within our /Tailscale repo.
And
And
thank
there's
you
a
all
lot of
so much
others.
for all of the many questions, far more questions we could ever get to throughout today's live stream. We do these regularly, and I know Kate will post a link or something about the cadence that we do here. Come to Florida. Which part of Florida? It's a big state. You got to be more specific, my friend. Yeah, let us know. Let us know. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. I've been Alex from Tailscale, and
I've been Kabir.
thanks everyone. Bye bye.